So to get us started, we're in Technician. I'm logged in from my Mac. We do support all the major Mac and PC browsers. Luckily, we don't have audio issues with Technician like we do with the webinar. So no matter what kind of computer you log in with, you shouldn't have a problem there. As you guys probably saw but didn't hear, I was just going through the options menu to change the different chart types on the screen. So you can really configure that both for time-based charts as well as time-independent charts like Renko, range bars, point and figure, and each of these can be changed as far as the box size and reversals, or we'll auto set those parameters for you. So those are available for any data set that you're looking at. Go ahead and turn off point and figure and just go back to traditional candlesticks. Real quick, before I leave the options menu, I just want to point out a couple of things that do occasionally get noticed by folks. One, over here, you'll notice this little display flip. This is a very important feature to notice. It's going to flip your chart upside down. I personally use this one all the time to actually analyze my charts and remove bias. I don't actually know if I'm looking at the chart right side up or not. However, occasionally you will notice that prices look different than what you expect and charts don't look like what you expect. Make sure you don't have things flipped upside down by accident. You can also switch over to logarithmic scale. You can turn on gap detection, which will actually show in gray any unfilled gaps on the chart. So here, kind of zooming out, we can start to see any unfilled gaps on this S&P 500 chart. And of course, adjusting for splits, which is going to be turned on by default. Now, you'll notice that I'm kind of moving around in the chart here. I'm on a Mac laptop, and so I'm using a two-finger scroll. However, when I'm on my PC and using a mouse, you'll just use the scroll wheel. You can also grab onto the Y-axis by clicking and dragging if you just want to adjust the vertical height, and you can grab onto the Y or the X-axis and move back and forth if you just want to change the amount of time range. We also have these little plus and minus buttons which you can use. And of course, on the touch device, if you log in from your iPad or your Android phone, or if you've already got the new iPad Pro that they announced, and you've got a giant tablet in front of you, you can pinch and manipulate the chart with your fingers. So we do try to support all the different input types because people are used to scrolling, clicking. You can click on the chart and grab it and move it back and forth if you want to pan. If you get stuck back in the past, you'll see a little button pop up here so you can always jump to the most recent candle back into time. Now, of course, the markets are closed, so we're not going to see a lot of price movement here, but normally the charts do update once per second. So you'll notice that you'll always know if the data that you're looking at is real-time or delayed, depending on the exchange that you're looking at. By checking down here in the lower left-hand corner, it will show you if it's real-time or if it's delayed. So for instance, if I pull up something that is in a market that we don't have real-time data for, so I pull up something on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, for instance, you'll notice it's going to say data delayed 15 minutes down here, and it looks like something pretty thinly traded at that. Versus when I go in and I look at a US equity, we're going to see real-time data. Most indices are going to be delayed 15 minutes. So generally for things like the Dow Jones, I actually recommend using the diamonds, which is the ETF that tracks it. So that's going to be real-time. You can select your time period or your interval, depending on which nomenclature you're used to, under the little menu right next to the symbol dropdown. So here I can pick between different, one-day candles, one-week candles, one-minute candlesticks. It's also important to note that you can actually change these to custom intervals. So for instance, we support your standard 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute. But sometimes we hear from traders that prefer, US equity traders that want to trade on 65-minute candlesticks is a great example, right? Split up the trading day into even number of candlesticks. So if I put in 65 minutes and put in a little custom period here and click the set button, you'll see that it's actually going to roll up those custom periods for me. And now each candlestick is going to represent 65 minutes. Switch back just to daily data. Going back in time, you'll notice that as you scroll back, we're going to load more and more historical data. So on an end of day chart like this, if I'm looking at the diamonds, I can go back years and years and years, and we'll go back as far as we can. For most equities, we're going to have between 10 and 20 years of historical data for end of day, and roughly 3 years for minute by minute data. So for most needs, that should get you by. One last little thing I'll point out up here is that if I click in here and I start typing, so I start typing in Apple to see what happened with the Apple stock after all the announcements, you'll see that as I start typing, I'm going to get suggestions for what symbol I'm looking for. You can do this based on ticker symbol, or you can do it based on the actual word, and it'll actually go through and search. Now, because we cover so many exchanges, you'll see that this becomes a pretty massive list. So you can actually go through and filter it down and just look at stocks, or if you just want to look at indices, or perhaps you want to look at futures contracts. There are no Apple's futures contracts. So you can kind of filter that down based on what it is that you want to see, and then just go ahead and click on the instrument that you're interested in. So let's start to look at some more advanced features and how we can actually do technical analysis here. So underneath the studies menu, this could be a little overwhelming at first because we do offer so many technical indicators. It's roughly 100 at this point. However, we do put the most popular, the most common studies or indicators in this little menu over on the left-hand side under popular studies. So that's usually where I go because I tend to just use RSI, MACD, and stochastics myself. And depending on what kind of analysis I'm doing, I may look at volume as well. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and click on MACD. You'll see the little dialog box is going to come up, giving me the different options that I can change for the look back periods, change the colors to my preferences, and I'm going to go ahead and click the Create button, and it'll add that technical indicator at the bottom of the screen. Now I can kind of keep going through. I'm going to add an overlay just so you can see something like a channel. So here we're going to do Keltner channels. So now I've got a technical indicator below. I've got an overlay on the chart. As I zoom in or out, these are going to obviously expand and contract. You can actually go through and for what it's worth, if you need to edit the study, you can actually click on the little icon down here, the little pencil icon, to edit that. Or for an overlay, what you're going to do is you're actually going to right-click on it. When I right-click on it, I'm going to get the options to either edit or delete the overlay. Now, if you're on a touch device, what you're going to do is actually just tap on that overlay. It's going to bring up those options as well. You can also move these guys around. So you've got the little arrows here. You can move things up and down if you want to have an indicator above, an indicator below, however it is that you prefer to set up your screen. The other kind of just screen configuration thing I want to show you guys is the ability to actually change the overall look of the charts themselves. And you can actually go through and, hold on 1 second. What's going on here with this Google Hangout? Let's see. Just 1 second. It looks like we're having a little bit of a lag in the Google Hangout to catch up. So give me just 1 second. Let's see if we can get this going. We're pulling around a second screen so I can actually see what you guys are seeing, just so that I can see the bit of lag that's in here so that you guys are not dealing with that. So under the little cog menu in the upper right, you'll notice that we have some themes that we can choose from. By default, things are going to be loaded with a light theme, but we can also go through and change it to a dark theme. Now, 1 sec, we're still waiting on that to catch up. Looks like the screen sharing is just dragging behind my voice a couple of minutes. So now you'll see under the cog menu that we can actually change between the light theme and the dark theme. You can also press the button to set up a custom theme. Custom themes allow you to change things like the candlestick colors. So if anybody out there is red-green colorblind, for instance, you can go ahead and change that as well. We had a couple of questions come in that I'm going to address as we go. How close to real-time are FX futures and equities? The FX is going to be real-time. So any FX is going to be real-time. Futures are delayed 15 minutes. US equities are going to be real-time. And international equities are going to be 15 minutes delayed. So you should be able to keep up with that. Okay. So now we can go ahead and switch back over to a light theme. So we're going to go ahead and switch back over to a light theme so that we can see our screen just a little bit better. I'm going to take you through and actually take a look at some of the drawing tools that we have in here. So under the drawing tools menu, we've got a variety of different options. I'm going to start off with just a very simple segment to show you guys how that works. Now with a segment, when I click on the drawing menu and I add a segment, you'll see that this little drawing toolbar appears at the top of the screen. This is going to appear for all of the drawing tools and allows you to change any of the attributes of the drawing. So for instance, I can change the color that I want to draw. I can change the line type and line thickness. And you'll also notice this little magnet icon that I can click. The magnet icon will actually snap to the top of candlesticks versus being able to kind of freeform draw wherever I want. I tend to be kind of an inexact guy. I'm not worried about snapping exactly at the top of an individual candlestick, so I never use the magnet tool, but obviously your own style there will depend on that. What I can do is just position the crosshairs wherever I want to start the drawing. I'm going to click once with my mouse and let go, and then move my mouse to wherever I want the drawing to end, and I'm going to click a second time to go ahead and set that line. So now we have that line in place, and no matter how much we zoom in the chart or zoom out the chart, that line is going to stay mathematically true. Now, I'm going to go ahead and click the Done button, and now that drawing is there. Now, there's no Save button inside Technician. So once I actually set that line, the line is going to be automatically saved, and it's going to be synchronized across your devices. So if I pull up Apple on my tablet, I'm going to see this line segment in there. Now, as I hover over it, you'll see I get some information about how, the percentage change across the line, how many bars it's going across, a little instruction that says right-click to delete. I can also grab onto the little handle at the end and move that wherever I want to move it. So you can always adjust a line in the future. Now, all of the drawing tools are going to follow that kind of basic click, move, set. So for instance, if I want to draw a Fibonacci retracement, I'm just going to go ahead and position the crosshairs where I want the top of the fib to be. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to move the crosshairs to where I want the bottom of the fib to be. And I'm going to click a second time, and that's going to go ahead and set it. So again, I've got the ability to then go in and edit that and move it. And if, for instance, instead of a fib retracement, I wanted to use a fib arc or a fib fan, all of those little options are going to be under the menu here. So if I want to do a fib arc, I'm just going to go ahead and start where I want that. I'm going to go ahead and drag it out and then set it wherever I want it to be. Again, mouse over it, right-click to delete. Now, I can also actually draw on indicators. So if I want to put a segment on an indicator, I can go ahead and draw down here, and that's going to get saved as well. And again, the zoom in and zoom out with me. So you can actually add things to indicators as well. You can also add things like moving averages to indicators. So for instance, I'm going to go into the Studies menu. I'm going to go ahead and click Moving Average. And when I get the little option up here, I get to choose what field I want it to be calculated off of. So by default, of course, it's going to be the close, but you could calculate a moving average off the open or the high if you wanted to. Or I can actually go ahead and put a moving average on the MACD or the MACD signal line. If I do that, you'll see the moving average actually comes down here. That comes in handy for things like volume. So sometimes you want to see a moving average of volume or a moving average on RSI, for instance, to kind of smooth it out over time. So those things are also available down here in Studies as well. And again, I can simply right-click to delete a drawing, right-click, go ahead and edit or delete the moving average. I'll go ahead and close out MACD and show you guys just a few other things to get you going here in Chart IQ. Now, aside from being able to change the theme, and as I said, we have light and dark, and then you can actually create your own custom theme as well. You can also change your time zone. This shouldn't come up too often, but sometimes it does. If you're in a different place with your laptop and your laptop hasn't changed time zones, you can click Change Time Zone. You can go through and simply select the time zone that you want. We're going to adjust everything based on what the exchange time was versus the time zone that you're in. So if you're looking at comparing a US equity to an equity that's traded on the, I don't know, Australian Stock Exchange on an intraday chart, you want to make sure that you know what time zone you're looking at things in. If you click Use My Current Location, it's simply going to grab the time zone setting from your browser. Now, speaking of which, everything that we've been looking at so far has been focused around analyzing one security at a time. However, sometimes we want to look at a comparison. So for instance, I might want to look at a Yahoo chart and look at a comparison of Yahoo versus Alibaba. Now, for everybody on the call, we probably know that those two are very closely correlated, so you know why I'm using this as my example. We'll look at a couple that aren't as closely correlated in the future, but right now I'm just going to use Yahoo as my base security. Obviously, not a great looking chart here. If I click on the Compare menu, I'm going to have a bunch of options for comparing Yahoo to something else. Now, of course, at its most simple level, I can go in and compare Yahoo to Baba, and if I just click Add, by default what it's going to do is a percentage comparison. So wherever the left of the screen is going to start at 0, and on the right hand side you'll see the axis has changed to a percentage scale, and I can actually see Alibaba and I can see Yahoo, and I can see they're both down for the year, and I can see how much, and I can see that they're pretty closely related. Now, if I zoom out, of course, Baba only started trading last year in August, so the history only goes back so far. But I may not want the history to start there. I may want to look at the performance of Alibaba versus Yahoo since an arbitrary date. So let's say I want to look at it since this earnings announcement in January of 2015. Under the comparison menu, I can add what's called a stop. And a stop simply allows me to pick an arbitrary point that I want the comparison to start from. So I'm going to click Add, and what that's going to do is it's going to give me crosshairs, and you'll notice that as I position the crosshairs, the point at which the percentage comparison is starting from changes where the crosshairs are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the crosshairs over that candlestick where the earnings announcement was. I'm going to click, and that now puts in a dashed line, and I can see that regardless of where I move the chart, the comparison is starting from that date. So it allows you to determine where you want that comparison to go from, and you can see that after earnings announcement from Yahoo, Baba actually went down dramatically and then came back up, and they've been kind of correlated ever since. Now, to get rid of the comparison, I can go into the comparison menu. I can see the symbols there, and I can go ahead and click the X to get rid of Baba. Now, if I wanted to compare Yahoo to the NASDAQ, I could go ahead and add in the Qs, but I might want to add in the Qs, and let me get rid of that stop. Add in the Qs, and then let's say add in the diamonds as well, so I can actually start putting in a bunch of different securities here and compare them all on a percentage basis. So here I've got a little key that's going to tell me I've got Yahoo, I've got the Qs, and I've got the diamonds. I can see each of the lines, and I can see what I'm doing there. Now, the other option besides comparing two securities is actually to overlay them. This is a bit more interesting to me because what I care about is not just the relative performance of Yahoo versus Baba, but I kind of want to know what the shapes of the charts really look like relative to each other, and they may be trading at very different prices. So if I move in here and I put in Baba and I click on Overlay instead, and then click Add, what it's going to do is it's going to keep the price axis absolute in price terms, but it's simply going to actually take the Baba chart and slide it over the Yahoo chart, regardless if they're actually trading at different price scales or not. So I could compare Yahoo to Berkshire A that are trading at very different absolute values, but I want to look at the shapes of the chart in comparison. Well, the one other thing I want to show you guys is really cool in here is the ability to add a correlation coefficient. And this has a look back period just like an indicator does. What it allows me to do is put in the security that I want, check correlation coefficient, click the add button, and it's going to add a technical indicator down below that's actually a correlation coefficient showing me how closely correlated the movement of these two securities are here using a 20-day or 20 period look back. I can add multiple correlation coefficients by going in and simply entering it again and putting in 50. And now I can see the longer term smooth correlation coefficient of the two. So here I've got correlation 20 and correlation 50. So this could be very useful to see things like when stocks and bonds couple and decouple over time, to see the movement of a commodity versus perhaps an equity that's reliant on that commodity or produces that commodity, and to see when a mining company decouples from the value of the commodity it produces, etc. So as you're looking at things, not just from a technical analysis standpoint, but from a portfolio construction and risk standpoint, this can be a very useful tool. Now again, to get rid of these, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up the menu. I'm going to click to get rid of BABA. It's going to go ahead and clear everything out for me. Now over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I want to point out a few different things. First, you'll notice that we actually have a green button over here designed to get your attention. If you click on that green button, a new panel is going to open up, which allows you to actually trade from the chart itself. The options that you have here are right now limited to two different things. One is to connect a Tradier account. If you don't know who Tradier is, you can actually click and it's going to give you the ability to open a Tradier account. I'm going to go ahead and log into my Tradier account. It's going to ask me a couple of security questions. Where is the Grand Canyon? I think it's in Nevada. Oh my gosh, I'm not a human being. In what month is Thanksgiving? It's in November. I'm like the world's worst trivia player, and I am failing this Turing test. What is the shortest month of the year? February. I'm going to click to remember this computer for 30 days so I don't have to go through and answer these questions again. I'm going to approve access. And now I'm actually connecting back to Technician. And when I open the Trading tab, you'll see that I'm actually connected to my Tradier account. So here I can see my positions and I can see my open orders. If I click on the name of a security that say I have an open order in, you'll see that that security is going to load. And I can actually see that pending order for buying 15 shares on the chart itself. Now, if I open up a security that I don't have a position in, so I'm going to take a look at Alcoa, and let's say I want to go ahead and buy Alcoa shares, I can go ahead and click Market, and I can say, hey, I want to go ahead and buy 100 shares of Alcoa, and I can go ahead and click Buy. It's going to come up with a thing to confirm my order, and I can either submit or abandon that order. Now, in this case, I'm going to live account, and I don't particularly want to buy 100 shares of Alcoa, but you can see what would happen if I click there. Similarly, if I want to put in I can actually go ahead and click Buy, or I can click Short. I can say I want to buy that same 100 shares, but I want to specify a price at which I want to buy them and put in a pending order. So now I'm going to say I want to buy 100 shares. I want to buy them at $10.24. I'm going to make this good for the day. I'm going to click Buy. I'm going to go ahead and submit that stop order. And now once it's been submitted, you'll see that order physically on the chart until it gets filled. So here I can see I have a pending order for 100 shares. I can tap on it with my finger or click on it with a mouse, and I can modify the order or cancel the order. The same thing holds true if I wanted to go ahead and go short Alcoa shares. So maybe I want to short 100 shares. I'm going to go ahead and position this up here. I'm going to click Short, click Submit, and now I've got a red tab showing that I've got a sell order. The same thing holds true if I own shares. So for instance, I own 1,300 shares of COP. If I pull that up and I decide I want to sell off part of my position, I can go ahead and click the sell button. I can enter how much of my position I want to sell off, so 500 of 1,300 shares. And as I move this up or down, it's going to show me how much I'm actually going to cash out and what my percentage and absolute gain or loss is based on the cost basis from the original trade. So as I move up, it's going to show me how much profit I'm going to realize or how much of a loss I'm going to realize based on where I position that order. I'll go ahead and click that to close that out. So here you can see how basic trading from the chart works. If you don't have a Tradier account and you click that, you can open one up, or there's actually a demo button when you open the trading panel if you want to play around with fake trades. Just to see how trading from the chart works, you can play around. We actually have some more complex order types in there, like brackets, OTOs, and OCOs. Also on the right-hand side, I have the StockTwits panel. StockTwits panel allows me to actually connect over to StockTwits and see who is discussing the security that I'm looking at. So by default, it's going to pull up whatever my current chart is. So I'm looking at ConocoPhillips. I can see all the different discussions that have happened about ConocoPhillips. I can see somebody's looking for ConocoPhillips to bounce off the Apple news. If maybe I want to see what's going on with Apple, I can go ahead and click on the Apple ticker. It's going to go ahead and pull up the Apple chart. That's going to switch my stream over to Apple, where I can see everybody that's discussing the new Apple devices. Now, if I want to discuss Apple, I can either click on a person's message and I can like their message, I can retweet it or follow the user, or I can actually click on this little icon here and reply back to them. It's going to automatically put in their StockTwits handle, the hashtag for Apple, and I can go ahead and put in what. If I click on this little icon right here, this little chart icon, it's going to attach an image of my chart and send that with the tweet itself. Now, if I'm not replying to somebody, I'm just starting a new message, I'll click on the little thing that looks like an iPad with the new iPencil. How convenient. I'm going to go ahead and share my message. This is, and I would click to attach that image of that chart, perhaps mark it as bullish, and then click post. Now, again, we're connected to the live system. And in fact, I just sent a live message across StockTwits. Also over here on the right are watch lists. Watch lists allow us to, of course, organize the securities that we want to look at. I've got a couple that I've created here, but I'm going to show you guys how to create a new one. So we're just going to go ahead and click on New List. It's going to pull up a little thing for me to create a watch list name. Dan's. Go ahead and simply enter all of the symbols that I want separated by spaces. So I'm going to put in the Alcoa and all the ones that I thought of immediately. Click the Save button, and now we have a new watch list that I can actually go through and click on here and go through all of my charts very, very quickly. Now, these watch lists are going to be synchronized out to your mobile device. Of course, when I go back to Alcoa, you can see that little pending order that's still there. This is going to be synchronized to your mobile device. So if you pull up your tablet or you pull up your phone with Technician, you'll actually be able to see all of these watch lists synchronized out. And again, if I had drawn in a, I don't know, Gartley pattern, and I had done that here on the chart, and I go onto my mobile device and I flip through my watch list, I'm going to go ahead and see the Gartley pattern as well. As you can tell, that's not a real Gartley pattern. I just made that up. So watch lists are going to be synchronized between all of your different browsers, all of your different devices, just like drawings and annotations are. The one other thing that I wanted to show you guys right now, and then we'll go through some questions from the audience, is a little tab down here in the lower left called Notes. This is a very simple feature from a technical standpoint, but something that I find to be very, very important. Sometimes I'll be going through and I'll be looking at a chart, and perhaps I put in you know, some sort of pattern that I'm looking at, and I notice something interesting about the chart, and maybe I put in, you know, an annotation on the chart. I put in a little call out to say, you know, falling knife. But what I really want to do is I want to put in some actual notes for myself on what I was thinking when I looked at this chart. So here we've got the ability to actually put in freeform notes. You can put in bullet points, you can put in links, you can put in bolded text or kind of format things, but I can actually put in different notes for intraday time periods, daily time periods, and weekly time periods. I know that seems amazingly simple, and it is. But for me, I think it's made me a better technician in that I'm actually keeping track of what I'm thinking. And very often I'll actually put in the date so I know when I did it. So I'll say, you know, September. So that I'm actually tracking, especially if I'm executing trades or I'm thinking about getting into or out of a position. If I notice something, if I drew something on the chart, I'll put in notes to remind myself of what those things were or why I was bothering to look at it. So that could be a very useful thing. Again, very simple and straightforward. Perhaps I want to put in a link to an article or something else that I was looking at the time. I can actually put in the link in the text itself. So just a little something to remind yourself of what you were thinking or what you were doing when you entered a trade, when you added an annotation, when you noticed a pattern. Sometimes I find myself going through and looking at charts, and I may have put in some trend lines or annotations like 2-3 years ago, but it's not a stock that I follow on a regular basis. And honestly, I can't remember what I was thinking at the time, and I wish that I'd actually been keeping track of it in a journal. So I've personally gotten a lot better about this just in going through my own charts to make sure that I take notes for myself. As well, if you go to technicianapp.com, you'll see that there is a support and resources center that has user guides, has some videos, has information on not just how indicators are calculated and the formulas, but also how to interpret them, and some great blog posts around how to create your technical analysis toolbox, and other resources that are available